our next speaker and our friend, Piotr Stepichev. Well, I think a very popular game designer and English teacher. Piotr is a NATE executive director, Malta vice president, teacher trainer and author, and he's really famous for his grammar cubes. Grammiki, yeah? Do you have his grammars at home? Grammar cubes, and a series of board games as well. So today, Piotr will talk about fun ways to teach vocabulary as a preliminary stage to speaking games. We can't play our speaking games if our students don't know the words. And this is what Piotr is going to talk about. Piotr will tell you in his talk where to find his miraculous games. Okay, let's greet Piotr with smiles.
Thank you so much for introduction and for invitation. I really like to play games, and not only to create games, but to play games at the lesson. That's very important. And I guess we're doing great job in this field. And I'd like to actually introduce some new games that I have, but I'll start with the bad things and finish with good things. So I'd like to show you. Oh, you don't see it actually. Just a moment. Okay. So, can you see the screen?
It is still
yeah.
Started screen sharing, but not yet.
Okay, yeah, I'm not from Moscow. That's why you see lots of nature around me. But my internet is not as good as in Moscow. Well.
Yes, now it's on the screen.
Yeah. So we will speak first about vocabulary, as if you don't know words, it's difficult to communicate, to play, and you cannot really speak if you don't know the words. And I'd like to show you this slide, and that is the bad thing I'd like to start with, because if you try to find Russia here, I'll explain to you later on where I took it. Like, can you see Russia? Like, that's the average English, the average vocabulary level by country. If we take non-native speakers, average amount of words that people from different countries have. So if we look at the end, at the bottom, we see Russia, which is line 9 from the bottom. So actually, what is the source of this research? And that is a life hack. You can go to test your vocab. That's a free resource to test your vocabulary level. The idea is really simple. You tick the words, and the mechanism like offers you more and more difficult words, and finally you have a result. They tested over 2 million people from different countries because it's free and many people wanted to get tested, and they had this result that people from Russia who took part in this research have the average of 6,700 words, which is not many words, actually, if you compare with other countries, especially countries from Europe. By the way, you can go to that website and try it yourself, because by doing so, we as English teacher can improve the statistics from Russia. And I do recommend you to do so. So that's the challenge we have. We don't know enough words to communicate. What can we do about it? And what research data do we have that can help us? This site also measures some correlations, and that is interesting. First of all, they asked a few questions, and after your vocabulary test, you are to answer a few questions, and they try to find correlations. One of the questions is about academic performance, like how can academic performance help, and what is the correlation, your academic performance and your vocabulary level. Actually, it is such a correlation, and usually students with higher academic performance know more words. That is natural, because if I'm a pro in biology or chemistry, I know lots of words from that field. So something like that, it works like that. Classroom participation. So if you're active in class, the question is, are you active in class? Like, do you raise your hand? Do you answer questions of your teacher? Things like that. So if you're active, again, you know more words. So that's also quite natural, because you're passive in class. You're passive in in your learning, and your word stock is smaller. But what is important for us as game designers? What is important for teachers who really love to engage their students? An important correlation is that outside of class activity is the biggest difference. So if we motivate our students to play games outside class, to take part in different events, to go to linguistic clubs, to participate in different activities outside their classroom, it boosts the vocabulary. So you don't limit yourself to this like 40 minutes of class. You go outside, you opt for different things, your students take it, or they initiate some things, and their vocabulary goes up. And living abroad is also an important correlation, but it works only for those who know more than 10,000 words already. And I can give an example. When my second language is German, and that's a great difference when I watch a film in German and when I watch a film in English. When I watch a film in English, it's like, that's interesting. I understand what's going on. And oh, what is the word? What is this word? I don't know it. I want to know it. I'll look it up, or try to find it in a dictionary. Yeah. So I take new words from the film. What happens when I watch a film in German? I can understand what's going on in general. I can enjoy the actors, but it's like, oh, I know this word. Oh, I know. That's the word I know. And then again, I don't understand that there's some speech is going on, and then, oh, this one more word I know. So because my vocabulary and competence in German is limited, this limitation works against me. I mean, I cannot get more. I do the same thing. I watch a film, but it doesn't work for me. I watch a film for known words in German, and I watch a film and enjoy it and learn something from it when I watch it in English. So definitely things like immersion, when you like go abroad to study in an immersion environment, when you have to speak all the time. So it mostly works when you have enough competence. Yeah. And one more graph here. The creators of the site made a distribution how many words respondents know, and actually 4,500 words is the largest. Well, that is the most of people know 4,500 words. If you know over 10,000, that is just a few percent. So you can actually go there and check their research. That's quite interesting, because you get from them the result, how many words you know. They get from you data for their research, and you also get from them on site for free their research results. So it's kind of international program. And the principle is quite simple. You have two lists: simple list and more difficult list. In the simple list, if you know all the words and you tick all the words, the second list will be really difficult. If in the simple list you don't know several words, which is okay, natural, the second list will be easier. So that's quite an interesting thing, how it works. You can try it yourself, and definitely improve statistics from the Russian Federation. Yeah, it's international, but the research data is well, research data is international. So they take information from all the respondents, and they made inclusion, for example, that outside of class activities make the biggest difference in terms of vocabulary stock, how many words you know. So these are the results they have international.
Okay.
Yep.
The sound is not very good. So why don't we stop sharing the presentation?
Sorry.
So I can't very well.
Oh, yeah. Well.
The sound, can you stop the presentation?
Okay. Yeah, I understand. Okay. Yep. Okay, we can restart the presentation from, well, we can try to restart it actually. I don't have many slides. The first slides are analytic, they're more important, and then I have slides about my games, which are anyway available at Znanie. So what to do about it? So the second part is what to do about it. I have games to deal with vocabulary that you can play anytime, anywhere, including summertime. For these games, you need at least 2 students. Oh, thank you. Yeah. Thank you so much. Yeah, that's great. That's how it will work. So the next slide is about my games. Okay, yeah. Just a moment.
Юля, можешь ты на слайд про игры?
So yeah. And now it will be better, as we have a separate source for the presentation and for the sound. a series of games that I have on Znania and as well as box versions. They are created to yeah, great. They are created to boost your vocabulary. What is the idea? You can play if you have from 2 to 8 players. So it can be for private studies when you have a teacher and a student, or it can be for a group. The principle, I call it disguised drilling. So when students play, they don't really realize they drill, but in fact they do. Because in a game, the idea is to put words one after another, and if the topic of the word coincides, you take all the cards. For example, I put the card a cat. The next player puts a card green. Then we have a card bus. And after bus, we have a card train. So if train and bus, they're the same topic, this student should take all the cards. So when topics coincide, you take all the cards. And when it's your turn again, you have to use your own cards. So you use green and you use a cat for the second time. And again, these words are in play. And during the game, the word can appear in a game in the deck in the hand of different players 5 or 6 times. So it is the same as you say, okay, repeat this word many times. But when you just repeat it, it's boring. But when you play, you don't really realize you drill. But you really do. So disguised drilling. One more feature that is in the game is you control the time. Teachers usually complain they don't have time for games, or they want to control time for games. And you can set a timer. And for example, in 5 minutes, if you have fewer cards, you win. So let me say I have just 2 cards, and other players have 5, 6, and 9 cards. So if I have only 2 cards, I still have cards, but I win. So you control the time. And I have a series of games, and you can learn 500 words in the games. But just to learn the words is not enough. You need to go deeper and go wider. Words should get together and form word combinations. Word combinations should become a sentence should become a text. Because when we communicate, we use sentences, and well, as a result, we have some kind of text in a broad meaning of this word. How to turn words, separate words, into text, that is our next slide and next idea. And one more important thing is that when you learn words, you should not just learn like table, that is Russian stole. You need to have a direct association, like this is table, this is a tree. So when you have this direct representation of the words in your mind, it's easier to communicate because you don't do one more operation of translating. That's why I used one more thing, and the next slide will show that. Let's have a look at the next slide. That is one of the ways I teach and my students learn vocabulary. I do it here in Taganrog at my summer dacha. We write words on the walls and ceiling. What my students do, they write a word and they draw a picture to have this direct connection of a word and an image. They don't use Russian. So this pictures I just took some time ago, not long ago, except for the picture with the girl I took a few years ago. So what is the idea? students learn vocabulary by drawing pictures to this particular vocabulary. It takes us about 2 weeks to learn from 300 to 400 words. I don't really force this process. It is not the amount of words they should learn, because it's an summer immersion course, and it's recreation plus learning at the same time. So I don't force anything, but in a natural way, at least 300 words I learned. One more method, that's the next slide. Thank you. And that is my board game, my game, which is not online. That's a real game. I also have it in my hands, but I will not risk turning on the video. Moreover, I think on a slide, it's even better seen. That's a simple puzzle game. I have here 17 letters, sorry. And out of 17 letters, you can make 10,500 words. And again, what is the idea? I ask my students to look around, to take objects, and to make words corresponding to the objects they see. For example, that is a map, that is a dice. So they see it and they make it here. They craft a word. An important thing here is that they don't write, but they remember spelling. Usually when you want to really master spelling, you should write, but here you can just make words with this game. If we take you can craft words, for example, not only real objects, but for example feelings. And I have a collection of from my students, love, hate, things like that. So they make emotions and they show this emotion. Yeah. And here I come to making syntax out of separate words. So let's have a look at, at the next slide. So the picture here represents one of the methods of my immersion course. We take products with the Russian names and substitute them for the English names. For example, we have like favorite instead of любимый sok. Yeah. Children who are not good at drawing can use real objects. I had actually such a student a few years ago here, and instead of drawing a hammer, he asked me for a hammer. So he wrote a word, a hammer, on the wall and asked me for a hammer. I gave him a hammer, and he used a tape, scotch, to put it on the wall. So if we can find an object here, we take it. As it's my private place, I give it for students entirely. So I don't rent this place. That's my experimental territory. And sometimes, we take the real object. So going from word to sentence, what do? First, we try to make combinations. For example, we name 10 things around us and add adjectives. For example, around me now, I see green leaves, or yellow and orange and green apricots. I see a lamp, a beautiful lamp. I see a high-tech telephone. I see a small laptop, and I see my perfect wife. So she's smiling. So I add just adjectives, and it becomes something bigger than just a word. One more thing is to describe things that's going around. What do I mean here? In class, we come up to the windows and we describe what's going on there. We look out and we describe what's going on in the street. I also do it when I have Skype lessons, and it's like trying to guess. For example, I guess, like, if you look out of the window, you'll see two men walking in masks. And then my student runs to the window, looks out, and then I get the positive or negative answer. For example, no, I don't see two men wearing masks. I see three children playing at the playground. Yeah. One more thing, again, to make it not a theoretic task, but to make it closer to life, I ask my students to choose a car, any car that they see in the street, and they describe this car and tell me, they choose, first of all, they choose a car out of many cars they see, and they say why they want to take this particular car. So it's not just description, it's something about the real object that they see. One more thing we do is English walking. So we have it with private students. We don't have our lessons in class. We go out and we have our lessons in the park or in the forest, or just in the streets of Moscow. And we can do many things, like we walk, and students add adverbs to how we should walk. For example, walk slowly, quickly, loudly, so making noises. That's quite fun. And again, we move from separate words to combinations and sentences. And sometimes they describe, they say what they want to see instead of what they really see. For example, I see a car, I want to see a tree here, something like that. Yeah, at our immersion course, that's a big topic, really. We have it for 2 weeks, and the first day we sign a paper at night with candles, and we swear to speak only English and nothing but English. And after that, I apply all these techniques. And when students don't understand, they can show me things. I use labels all around them. I can use a picture. I can use, well, all kinds of compensating techniques. Even to order food, students have to either show me what they want from the menu, or try to gesture, draw. That's really interesting. Usually I take students that I know, and as I know these students, at least for a year, I sometimes can just understand what they mean, because we have a good rapport, and sometimes I understand my students without words.
3 minutes, okay.
Oh, yeah. So the whole idea is get as many words as you can get, but these words should be like useful for communication, because sometimes the lists that we get from school are not that real. I mean, students come to my place, they need to order food, real food that they will eat, and they don't know words for that, but they know many words from school lists. They can use them, but it has nothing to do with the real food they can get from me, from this menu. So first take the words, and then try to use the words in different contexts. And an important thing is to make it interesting and fun, because to teach when you have bright impressions is a good idea. Well, I believe that emotion is the greatest tool to teach, because students who are bored are difficult to teach. Really, they don't really get the information, because the emotions work against them. But if you have strong emotions, even fear, I'm not I'm not for fear in the classroom, but any strong emotion can help us in teaching. So the games that I create, the games that we create, they help us to create this emotional background that helps teaching. Thank you so much for your attention. Let's have a look at the next slide with the contacts. Yeah. And I'm ready to answer the questions.
Okay, thank you, Piotr. Thank you very much. I could see your picture on Instagram made by Olga.
Oh, really? Oh, great. I didn't know she was doing that.
I know what it looks like when you're somewhere in the garden with a lamp. Okay.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So, if you have any questions to Piotr, you can ask. So, well, we have about 2 minutes for questions.
Yeah.
So if you have any questions, so online, Piotr,
Yeah.
help Piotr to put his games, yeah, online.
Yeah. Thanks so much for sharing. Yeah.
So
That's it.
get to his games online as well and enjoy playing them with your students. Okay, any questions? If there are no, Piotr, you have got a question. Have you got games for higher levels?
Well, I've got like phrasal verbs, irregular verbs, games like that, but not online, and idioms. These games I have in box versions. But when it comes to speaking, well, I guess trendy English games are more focused on that, because my games that I have on Znania now, they're more about vocabulary. Definitely, you can play it even without a Zoom or Skype connection. You can just play it silently, which is on the one hand good because it's easier. But on the other hand, speaking is not part of the task. When well, to play the game, you don't need speaking. I'll add more complicated games, and they will require some speaking during the game. But now the games on Znania are on a simpler mechanism. They are just to boost vocabulary for pre-intermediate, for beginners. And my box games, they are available here, play and learn. I guess something like that, or at least play and learn like this. Yeah.
And can you share the contacts? People ask.
In a way, you can use some of my games for upper levels. For example, if you need to focus on spelling of difficult words, you can use this puzzle with 17 letters. It is not limited in the number of words you make and the difficulty of words. It can be like difficult terminology. I had a doctor, a student, who mastered medical vocabulary with the help of this puzzle. So on the way to work, he was making these words in the puzzle from his list, very specific list actually.
I'm very sorry to interrupt, but okay, we have to follow our timetable. Okay, let's give a round of applause to Piotr. And if you have any other questions to